Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dishu and you're watching Data Science with Dishu. So last video मैंने एक स्पेशल वीडियो निकाला था that was for the New Year resolutions. So if you haven't watched it yet, make sure you go through it. So आप basically New Year को कैसे प्लान कर सकते हो, what are the things that you should do in New Year. So एक जनरल पर्सपेक्टिव मैंने वहाँ पे दिया है, so आप जरूर उसको चेक करना. Now coming back to our data science session. So last session में हमने NumPy library cover up किया था. Now we are going to start a new library that is called Pandas. And I can say it is actually a core library for data analysis. So data science के सबसेट में अगर आप data analytics field में आओगे and if you want to do any kind of analytics on a data, let's say you want to analyze it and find out some insight out of that. So in this perspective, Pandas library becomes essential. So Pandas library basically आपके data से interact करता है and with that data set, using that data set, whatever the things that you want to find out, you can easily use that Pandas library and get all the things that you want. So I think we will cover up Pandas in 3 to 4 sessions, but it may take more sessions also because it is a very important and core library. So I'm not going to miss any concepts. So basically we will be starting with like introduction to Pandas library, then why we use Pandas libraries, what are the advantages of Pandas library, and then we'll move towards the Pandas data frame. Like what is actually a Pandas data frame? So that is basically a kind of data set, but we will look at it like what is actually a data set in form of Pandas data frame. So we will also learn to create data frames, then how we can interact with those data frames, and then we will also interact with some of the external data frame that is already available, and using that data frame we will try to find some insight out of that, like summarizing the data, then finding the range of the values of any like features and obtaining some of the valuable insight out of that. So without getting any delay, let's get started. So let's start with Pandas. So first we are going to look at what is actually Pandas library. So Pandas is a Python library used for working with data sets. Now what is data set? So I have given an example of a data set. So a data set has simply some rows and then some columns, and this is actually column names. You can say header, actually a header is a column name. Now there are different columns like first name, last name, then date of birth, age, salary, department. So this is actually a sample data set that I have provided. So this is actually a data set related to any company. So let's say this is a sample data set of that company. Now Pandas library can be used to working with this data set. So how a Pandas library will interact with this data set? So actually what you can do using Pandas functions. So in Pandas library there are many functions that are available. So using that functions, what you can do, you can analyze the data, you can clean the data, you can explore the data, and you can also do some of the manipulation. Now what is analyzing? Analyzing means you want to find out some insight out of that. Let's say you want to see that for different age group what is the average salary. So you can just check out, let's say if the age of a person is higher then the salary is higher or not. So you can analyze that thing using that data set. Cleaning means what? Cleaning means, let's say you want to filter out the data. You want to, let's say take the employees that are having an age greater than 30, let's say 35. So in those cases what you can do, you can clean out the data. For the people which are having age like less than 35, let's say this one and this one, they will be discarded here. That means you can just filter out the data and you can just choose the data set that you actually want. So this is a kind of filtering the data set. So cleaning the data set may have many things, like you can actually have some of the values that are wrong values. Let's say there are some date of birth which are having, let's say 2030. So since it is 2024, you can't have a date of birth of 2030. So that is actually a wrong data. So you have to clean that. Either you have to delete that whole row, or you have to just confirm the data and you have to replace the date of birth with the actual date of birth. So this comes under cleaning. Exploring, same as analyzing, like you can explore the data. Exploring means just looking at the data, like what is the average age of a employee belonging to R&D department. You can just check out what is the average salary of an employee which is having sales department. So these are actually what? These are exploring the data. What is the range of salary that employees are getting? This is actually exploring the data. And manipulating the data means what? You can create some more columns. Let's say कि आपको एज कॉलम दिया ही नहीं है, so even if the age column is not given, since you have date of birth, based on today's date, you can create a new column of age, and you can just subtract the today's date with the date of birth, and you will get the age of that person. So this is what this is actually creating a new column based on the existing column. So this is a kind of manipulating the data. So all of these things you can do with the help of a Python library that is called Pandas. So in Pandas there have many functions, and using those functions you can do all of these things that I have just explained. Now why the name Pandas has been given? So it is not the animal name Pandas. So it is actually reference to the both like panel data and the Python data analysis. So that shortcut Panda is actually extracted from like panel data, or you can say Python data analysis. So it is just a kind of text that has been extracted from that, and we are getting a name that is called Pandas. So this is how Pandas library is useful. Now the question comes, why we use Pandas? Why we cannot do all of these things whatever I have just explained in Excel? So you can do all of that thing in Excel also. Whatever the analysis, whatever the exploration, whatever the manipulation that you want, you can also do that thing in Excel also. But why we are using Pandas? So why we use Pandas? Because Pandas allows us to analyze big data. Now when it comes to the big data, that means you have millions of rows, trillions of rows. Now in an Excel sheet you cannot analyze a big data. Like if it has a millions of rows, it will be very difficult to analyze those things there. And there is also a limitation of rows in Excel sheet. I've just forgotten what is the exact number. If you know that, comment down. And you can also make conclusions based on the statistical theories. So there are some new words that are coming, so don't be afraid with those new words. I will explain all of these things as we move forward. So as we have seen that Pandas can clean messy data sets and make them readable and relevant. That means there might be possibility that whenever you are getting a data set that is very messy, like it is not clean, so you can just clean that, make readable. All of these things you can do with the Pandas, which is very difficult to do with Excel. Then relevant data is very important in data science. So this is actually a statement that I have given. So in data science, whenever you are going to analyze any data and you are going to apply any machine learning models, so before that you must have to ensure that data is relevant, because if you don't have a relevant data, there is no any meaning of doing analysis with that data or applying any ML model on that data. So first and the foremost step of any data analysis or any data science project is relevant data. So you must have to ensure that the data is relevant, it is clean, it is readable. All of these things is available on that data. Next we are going to look at the advantages of Pandas library. So what are actually some of the advantages? So first is the fast and efficiency for manipulating and analyzing the data. As I've already told you, data from different file object can be loaded. So this is one of the advantage, that if you have a data set that is present in CSV format or an Excel format or any, let's say, JSON format, so all of those kinds of data set can be actually loaded here and you can analyze that data. Then there is an advantage of handling missing values. That means you can actually easily handle the missing values. What is the missing values? So some columns might be having missing values. That means there is no any value present. So if I just give you an example, let's say for this data set you have some of the columns that are not having the age. Let's say for this person Joe, age is not available, or let's say the salary is not available. So if that value is not available, then what you can do, you can either delete that row or you can just replace that value with the mean, median or mode, whatever relevant in that scenario. Then we have size mutability. So columns can be inserted and deleted from a data frame, and higher dimensional object can be also added. That means a data set having many more columns. Then data set merging and joining. Data set merging and joining means what? You can just, if you have a data set, let's say this data set in two parts, 1 to 4 rows are in a different Excel or CSV format, and this is in again in another file. So what you can do, you can merge both of the data set together and you will create a data set that is having 8 rows. So instead of having 4 rows in different file and 4 rows in different file, you can just merge them together and form a data set of 8 rows. So this is called actually merging. And what is joining means, let's say you have a data set having only 3 columns, A to C, and let's say you have a data set with another 3 columns. So what you can do, you can just join them together. And how you can join that? Based on a common column. So here I'm just taking 3 columns here and 3 columns here and joining. But in actual scenario what will be happening, आपके पास एक कॉमन कॉलम होगा. सो लेट्स से ए, लेट्स से द फर्स्ट नेम इज कॉमन बिटवीन द बोथ ऑफ द डेटा सेट. सो फर्स्ट डेटा सेट में लेट्स से ए बी सी कॉलम है एंड द सेकेंड डेटा सेट में ए डी ई एफ कॉलम है. सो इन दैट केस बेस्ड ऑन द कॉलम ए ज्वाइन देम टुगेदर. नाउ ज्वाइंस डिफरेंट टाइप के हो सकते हैं, लाइक वी हैव सीन ऑल ऑफ दिस थिंग्स. व्हाट इज inner join, left join, outer join, all of these things we have already seen. So based on that you can just join two data set together on whatever the joining criteria that you want. Next there is a flexible reshaping and pivoting of data set. That means you can just reshape the data set, whatever the columns that you actually want, you can just filter out and reshape them. Then you can provide time series functionality. Now what is that thing? That means you have certain column that is based on time. So using that column you can have time series functionality. Now what is that thing? I will explain that in later stage, but yes, that is one of the advantage we have. Then powerful group by functionality for performing split, apply, combine operations on data set. Powerful group by functions. Now what is group by actually? So let's say based on the sales, let's say you want to see the average of salary of department sales. So what you can do, you can just group by on sales and you can just sum up the salary and you can find out the average of the salary, whatever you want based on that thing. So we'll actually see what is actually group by and how, what are the aggregate things that you can find out using that group by function. So just be patient, all the things will be covered up. Next we are going to see what is actually a pandas data frame. So whatever the data set that you have, let's say in Excel format, or let's say you have in CSV format or in JSON format, whatever the format that you have of that data set, first of all you are going to import that data set in pandas data frame. So you are going to convert that into pandas data frame. Now what is that pandas data frame and why we are converting that? Because we have to use the pandas library. So pandas library can be only operated on the pandas data frame. So you have to make sure that फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल जो भी आप डेटा सेट ले रहे हो, आइदर इट इज़ इन एक्सेल फॉर्मेट और CSV और JSON और एनी अदर फॉर्मेट जो कि सपोर्टेड है आपको pandas डेटा फ्रेम में कन्वर्ट करने में, सो दैट यू कैन लोड इट हियर एंड कन्वर्ट टू द pandas डेटा फ्रेम एंड देन you can apply the pandas library on them. So what is actually a pandas data frame? So it is a data structure in Python that provides the ability to work with the tabular data. What is tabular data actually? So tabular data means you will be having some of the columns and some of the rows. So like that, whatever you have seen in Excel, that is the same kind of thing. You have some rows, so these are actually called rows and these are actually called columns. So verticals are columns, horizontal are rows, and it can have a header name. So here you will be having some of the header names. So header name is column name. So जो भी आपने देखा यहाँ पे, let's say name है, यहाँ पे एज है. सो ऑल ऑफ दिस थिंग्स आर व्हाट हेडर नेम यू हैव. एंड द कॉलम्स इन pandas data frame can be different data types. That means the data types of column may be different. Like name का data type क्या होगा? It can be a string, but if you go to the age is what? Numbers. So it can be happen that this first column is having a string data type, the second column is having numbers data type, numbers in numbers, let's say it is integer, and another column can be float. Then let's say the third column is date of birth. So date of birth is actually a date type of data type. So it can accumulate all of those data types, and each value in a data frame is referred to as a cell. So whatever the value that you are providing, let's say for age you are having 25, you are having 30. So this is actually what? This is a cell. In that cell you are having a value of 25. So this is a different cell, this is a different cell, this is a different cell. So these are actually called a cell, and inside that cell you are having some of the values, and each cell has a specific row index and the column index. So it can be having a row index. That means let's say row started with 0 first. So this is having what? First row and 0 1 2. that means the second column. So it is having some of the indexing also. So agar indexing has, so you must have understood that you can do actually like indexing and slicing, all that kind of thing in a pandas data frame. So this was a brief introduction that I have given for the pandas data frame. Now we are going to practically look at that how we can operate with the pandas data frame in Python. So let us directly jump into the Colab notebook.